welcome to another episode of Tim Kirby Russia, where I, political analyst and radio talk show host Tim Kirby, give you an interesting, unique look from inside Russia regarding current events, geopolitics, and much more. And today's big topic is going to be Bitcoin and the future, with our guest Guerrilla, who is the host of the Rogue News podcast, which is really successful, by the way. Good job, Rogue News. He's also a metal and Bitcoin trader and a financial expert by trade. He's going to be with us coming up very soon. So before we get to Mr. Guerrilla's interview about Bitcoin, let's talk about another interesting sort of financial system of the future. I'm not an economist. I read about economics. My expertise are in the media, ideology, and geopolitics. That's what I read about primarily. So I wanted to take this in more of an ideological direction because Bitcoin is something that almost seems futuristic. I think anyone my age, about 40 years old, when they were a kid, they would have never seen anything like Bitcoin coming. But there was something kind of like Bitcoin from a fantasy universe that I think would be interesting to talk to you about, because it's also very ideological. So there was this game called Mutant Chronicles Warzone, tabletop war game. And in the game, they sort of had this sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, Blade Runner, cyberpunk, corporate future, where mega corporations essentially take over nation states. So essentially, all of us are kind of employees that are born into position, which kind of, in some ways, mimics medieval times with feudalism. So it's kind of like a futuristic feudalism of a corporate type that spreads across our solar system, which is kind of a neat idea. But what I wanted to talk to you about in terms of currency was the one faction was sort of modeled after Americas. They're the most capitalistic faction. And their concept for their money was that every person, every human being is worth 1 unit of stock. Okay, so 1 stock certificate is created every time a person is born, and 1 leaves every time a person dies. Based on the results of the corporation per year, obviously if the corporation makes money, it pays out to every citizen, which also kind of implies that if they lose money, you've got to actually work off your debt to your own country, which is kind of interesting and kind of crazy. This is where this gets into the whole dystopian era. And of course, the value of the money of this corporate American semi-state was based on the value of those stock certificates for each person. And of course, going further into the dystopian vision of the future as well, just like now whenever the Democrats organize elections, dead people vote. So dead people would sometimes stay on the roster. Rich people would be able to sort of seize the stock certificates of people who are already dead, and also the stock certificates of people who are already alive, because very often desperate people would sell their one and only piece of stock that they were born with to sort of enter indentured servitude to these corporate masters. So despite the fact that every person in theory has, 1 stock certificate from birth, the reality is a lot of the more powerful people in society control 3 or 4% of the stock. So that was very dark, very interesting, very realistic. But the thing that ties us into Bitcoin is that that kind of system would have to be very tough to manage. Very, very tough logistically, even with futuristic capabilities from science fiction. But to be honest, when I kind of first heard about Bitcoin, when I first had Bitcoin explained to me in detail, I kind of put the connection where, well, now with this whole blockchain ledger system, we can actually do something like that. Now, of course, this economic system of a dystopian future is not exactly something that I'd want to do or advocate for, because obviously it got turned into a way to bring back indentured servitude, which is not good. But something that also intrigued me from a young age was the idea that maybe then something a little bit different with the system is not that every person is 1 unit of stock, but maybe we should have a fixed amount of money that divides the wealth of a particular nation into, say, 1 billion units, right? So we take Russia, we divide the value of Russia into 1 billion units per year, and with blockchain technology, we could keep that organized billion units of currency in order, because in the past, how are you going to do that with paper money? Paper money gets destroyed, people make fake money, counterfeit and all that. But the possibility of some sort of futuristic system where each of us essentially is trading between each other a little tiny portion of the value of our nation, I think that could really change things. That could really change things to the benefit of the average person. That's not so much a Russia idea, that's a me idea, but I can tell you one thing, is that as Russia goes further, you all should look up a man named Glaziev, who's sort of organizing the Eurasian Economic Union. And I'll put it this way, he's very open-minded to big change. And who knows, maybe with blockchain, a little bit of sci-fi imagination, and Mr. Glaziev's willpower, things could really change here. Things could really change. But anyways, let's get to our interview with Mr. V Guerrilla, who is a metal and Bitcoin trader and the host of Rogue News. Okay, V, so first off, I have to say that we're going to use a Photoshop creation of mine to represent you today because you do everything anonymously. So let me ask you, why do you work anonymously on Rogue News, but then not anonymously as a Bitcoin metal financial guy? Why do you have to keep this anonymity behind the mysterious name of V?
Well, Tim, first and foremost, it's great to be on, and people know me as V the Guerrilla Economist, or just V or V Guerrilla. But V is my most popular name. I've been V my whole life. It has to do with the first letter of my first name, and so it just kind of stuck. And what I do is this. I mean, I first cut my throat in my throat. I cut my teeth. I cut. Yeah. You can kind of say you cut your throat in banking. But yeah, I first cut my teeth in. I started in strategic metals, okay, which was your cobalt, your vanadium, your molybdenum. Then we went over to rare earths, which are like your rhenium, your hafnium, your infinium, and things of that sort. And eventually went from there to precious metals. And in terms of precious metals, we're talking about gold and silver. And I'm not talking about your typical mom and pop coin store or some small regional firm in the United States. I'm talking about the LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association, as well as the SBMA, the Singapore Bullion Market Association. Dealing with one of the clients that I worked with is one of the largest procurement and logistics companies for precious metals in the entire planet. They own the largest private gold vault in the world, and that is in the free trade zone in Singapore. They also own vaults in Switzerland and a few other spots strategically placed throughout the world. So that's where I got my start. And then it kind of snowballed. Eventually, sometime around 2012, clients started emailing me and started emailing us about Bitcoin. We initially thought it was a scam. And we looked into it and fell in love with the technology and made the statement that blockchain technology is probably the most important invention for human development since the advent of fire. And from there, we kind of snowballed and eventually made my way into the alt-media space and started working and writing articles under a nom de plume. And and picked on, and the name stuck, V the Guerrilla Economist, and you can find me over at roguenews.com. And the reason why I fly under a nom de plume is because, hey, I have a lot of professional clientele that are in the institutional side of things, and I don't want things to be muddied up. I want the personas to be completely separate from the work and professional life.
You know, we're talking about gold or any other metals. There's definitely some stereotypes that come up. You know, gold has been valuable since the dawn of human history, right? So everyone says gold's always a safe bet. It'll always be worth something. Even silver, to an extent, gets the same sort of hype. But is there any truth to this? Are these stereotypes just sort of made up? Because I haven't bought a chicken sandwich with a gold bar in quite some time. And do the actions of the U.S. government or any other government on the planet have an effect on the price of precious metals?
Oh, huge. First and foremost, the whole adage that, well, it's as good as gold, or, gold is the currency of kings, or J.P. Morgan's famous quote, only gold is money and everything else is debt. That holds true. And the second part of your question in terms of is the price of gold affected by sovereigns such as the United States? Is the price of gold affected by manipulation? And the answer is 100% correct. Yeah, it is. And we've seen this with the LBMA pricing on the pricing side, which is manipulated by futures contracts that are on many of these exchanges, like the COMEX, where you have hundreds of billions of ounces of gold being supposedly traded monthly, with multiple names to each bullion ounce, with no delivery or on the other side. So in other words, the people are supposedly buying but not taking delivery, and there's no buyer on the other side. So what we call this phenomenon is something that is illegal, that is called a naked short, and it continues to plummet the precious metals price. And that is done predominantly because if you are a central banker, the last thing on earth that you would want to do is have high gold and silver prices, because it makes your fiat currency look terrible. So that is one of the things that the powers that be, don't want.
Okay, so why do no governments try to stop this? We all know in America, Washington and the Fed have kind of a curious relationship. But there are countries like communist China where they could lay the hammer down. So why does no one try to stop this?
They benefit off the in terms of the low gold price. Here's the funny thing with China. China is the largest gold producer in the world. They're the largest gold manufacturer in the world. They're the largest gold importer in the world. They're the largest gold exporter in the world. And these low gold prices, where gold's at $1,700, $1,800 an ounce, is something that they benefit from right now, because what is happening is we are seeing, especially the events that are happening in the West, the events that are happening all throughout the world. People are wondering what the heck is going on. We're seeing the distress of nations. And the reason for that is because we are seeing the end of the fiat system that's been at play since 1971. The dollar hegemony is coming to an end, and we're seeing this reordering. And the only thing that's going to survive a financial currency unraveling, a currency devaluation, and we're heading into phenomenons like stagflation, which I warned about since 2012, is to have something physical. And the only thing that a central bank or a government or a nation can have that is physical, that is worthwhile, that has stability, that can be a hedge against inflation is gold. And this is why the low gold prices, China has been draining the vaults in London. They've been draining vaults in Switzerland. They've been draining vaults all throughout the world in order to procure as much gold as possible. Now, unofficial numbers of how much gold they've imported throughout the years has varied, but it's between 20 to 30,000 metric tons of gold is the unofficial numbers in China. So they know something. They know that the fiat system is unraveling, and a lot of people long suspect that there's no gold left in the United States, especially in Fort Knox. And these things are going to play out incredibly vividly and incredibly terrifying for what is to come down the road, Tim.
Now, one thing that comes up with any discussion of precious metals is the country of Russia. I always hear things about how Russia is really the only true global exporter of palladium and some other metals. So is this true? Is Russia really that influential of a metal exporter?
No, Russia's a huge player in this. I mean, Russia is integrally linked at the hip with China. They are both both members of what a lot of experts are calling the multipolar world. And the multipolar world, for people that have not been paying attention, is the alternative. It is the competing system that is dominated by the Anglo-American West. So the multipolar world, Russia is a very important point. It's a pivotal point in Eurasia. It is the power that is the hegemon in the Eurasian continent, so to speak. And what they play is very important. I mean, the Russian central bank has been buying gold at a rapid clip. And you mentioned palladium. That's huge. So is platinum. Russia's a major player in platinum. Platinum, palladium, rhodium. These are all members of the platinum family. And what people don't realize about platinum is that platinum is super rare. Second thing is platinum is that it's thinly traded. There's not that much platinum in the world. And the third thing about platinum that makes it so unique is that it's otherworldly. In other words, it got here through meteor strikes. It did not come from this planet. The fourth thing about platinum that's so remarkable is that when you're starting to talk about green energy, when you start talking about the next generation of energy that is going to take humanity to the stars, or that's going to power our cities cleanly and efficiently without any sort of waste, is cold fusion. And you cannot do fusion without the platinum family of metals. And the platinum family of metals have a very specific crystalline lattice structure that allows for cold fusion to take place. So Russia, gold, and platinum plays a huge pivotal position in this global transition from the Anglo-American corrupt and failing criminal West into the multipolar world.
Now, I have a feeling, but I could be wrong, that the people who are really stockpiling all these metals and stuff and all these preppers, they're not exactly the kind of people who work at McDonald's. So what kind of plan would you recommend for a more normal person? Can a person with a real average or sub-average income actually do something with precious metals?
Well, there's quite a few options out there. The average person can get certain coins. If you can't get a 1 ounce gold coin, you can certainly get a 1 ounce silver coin. You can get a 1/10 of an ounce gold coin. You can get gold right now sold on eBay and sold through various distributors out there online. You can actually buy gold by the gram. There's companies like Pamp Swiss that sell cards that are LBMA certified that have 1 gram of gold in it, which is pretty unique. So you can buy gold by the gram these days, which is incredible, which lowers the price of admission. The second thing besides precious metals that we like to advocate for people is get cryptocurrencies, and that's been proven out to be well. Again, we got into Bitcoin when everybody was calling it a scam. It was around $200. Now look at it, we're about to crest $70,000. We're at that tipping point. And you're going to see, it's funny, Tim, because you're going to see gold start moving higher soon as well. I'm thinking towards the end of the year, perhaps breaking into the new year, we're going to start seeing some major price action in gold and silver as well. But crypto is another option. And that's another way for people to stave off the impending bankruptcy that their country has put themselves in.
Now, I'm definitely no financial genius, but I know that if the supply of gold doesn't change and demand goes up, the price goes up. If we keep printing a bunch of dollars, their value goes down. But Bitcoin overall seems to just get more and more and more expensive. So why is that? Why is demand ever increasing for finite Bitcoin?
It's an interesting story. To really get the bird's eye view on something like Bitcoin, you got to look at it this way. Bitcoin is capped via its own programming to be produced to only have 21 million Bitcoins, and that's it. It could only be 21 million, but Bitcoin can be bought in bits. So you don't have to spend $66 or $67 or $68,000 on a coin. You can buy $20 worth of Bitcoin, which will be 0.00001 Bitcoin, right? So you can go at it in that direction. So now the price of Bitcoin is rising up. There's a whole bunch of geostrategic factors. Okay, when crypto and Bitcoin got to start, and it started to heat up, especially around between 2010 and 2012, where we saw some real price movements when Bitcoin went from like $15 or $11 a coin all the way up to $200 to $500 to $600 a coin. There was a lot of action. It was during that time we heard about the guy who bought pizza with 1,000 Bitcoins and this, that, and the other, so on and so forth. And what occurred is eventually the cryptocurrency craze started getting big enough to the point where Wall Street started to notice. And then when Wall Street, which is, in the United States, there is an amalgam of corporations and government. It's the same thing. It's fascism, corporatism, however way you want to call it. Wall Street started looking into Bitcoin. But they stepped back and they poo-pooed it. They said it's stupid. There's no underlying value to it. There's no liquidity in it, so on and so forth. But more and more innovative people started getting involved. And the cryptocurrency market began to grow and grow and grow. It did. And then at some time in 2016 through 17 through 2018, Wall Street took a real keen interest in Bitcoin, especially when Bitcoin crested its first all-time high, which was its first major all-time high that made news networks all throughout the world buzz, and Bitcoin became a household name. And that is when Bitcoin crested close to $20,000 per coin. And at that point, Wall Street started jumping in. So what happened is Wall Street would publicly, like JP Morgan did, publicly poo-poo and talk down and berate and belittle Bitcoin as a worthless invention of a bunch of internet nerds, to now start looking at it as a legitimate product. And so they started coming in. And then you see the price drop from 20,000 all the way back to 6,000. Then at the 6,000 point, you see them start coming in and buying up the supply. And they've been buying up the supply. And I've warned my audience, I've warned my clientele. I say, hey, look, here's the deal. Back up your truck at $6,000 per coin because you'll never see it at this price again. Because this time around, the institutions are coming in. And the institutions started coming in. Who were they? Well, they were mostly Western banks. And who are these Western banks? These are yield-starved zombie institutions looking for the next product to peddle. And so when they started buying up the supply in 2018 and 2019 and 2020, they started driving the price up. And then certain groups, like I've been warning about, like the DCG Group, Digital Currency Group, which is a hydra, which is the squid that has its tentacles in everything. The Digital Currency Group, DCG Group, is controlled by banking interests. They're controlled by Wall Street interests. Guys like JP Morgan, guys like Goldman Sachs. Okay, you have members like Larry Summers, who was on the board of the DCG Group. And who do they? What does DCG Group own? Well, they own Coinbase. They own Kraken, two of the biggest exchanges in the United States. They own a bunch of crypto wallets. They own many other institutions. I think they even have a share in Gemini. They have a share. They're the majority shareholder in Grayscale, which is the largest Bitcoin and cryptocurrency firm in the United States, Grayscale. And Grayscale has been notorious for buying Bitcoin at tens of millions of dollars a clip every single month. So they've amassed a massive, massive supply. And now you see them driving the price up higher. And then the question becomes, how are they driving the price up higher? They use an old technique that's been banned on Wall Street, but people still kind of do it. But it's rampant on crypto exchanges all throughout the United States and all throughout the world. And that technique is called wash trading. Now, what the heck is wash trading, and how does that apply to crypto? Well, it looks like this. Picture, if you will, that I was an institution like Goldman Sachs. Mm-hmm. Picture, if you will, that I own a crypto exchange. Let's just say I own, like, I don't know, XYZ exchange, right? And on this exchange, I own 20 wallets. And then I arrange on my trading platform 20 wallets on one side and 50 wallets on the other. Then I begin to start trading Bitcoin. I start selling it and started putting sell orders. And I move my coins from one wallet that I control, or the 20 some odd wallets I control, to the 50 some odd wallets I control. Now it looks like there's a sell off in the coin. Now I'm creating a market making maneuver that is causing the others prices to drop. And they'll coordinate. It won't just be, Goldman will call JP, he'll call, guys in the DCG Group, like, hey, look, let's just crash the price. And they'll cohesively work to crash the price of Bitcoin. And this way you see pullbacks to, it'll be 55,000, then it goes to 48,000, and people freak out. And when they freak out, what do? They dump their Bitcoin. And then the stronger hands come in and buy it from the weaker hands, right? They gobble it up. They consolidate the supply, so on and so forth. So this is how it's been working. Now, the question is, why are they doing this? That's the multi-trillion-dollar question. Simple. I said this years ago, Tim, to my audience as well as to my clientele. I said Wall Street wants to control the supply of Bitcoin. The reason for that is this. If you control the Bitcoin market and the price action of the Bitcoin market, you can largely affect, to some degree, the price of alternative coins. So if Bitcoin is up, all the other altcoins are up. If Bitcoins are down, all the other altcoins are down. All right? That's the first thing. The second thing, it provides a place for yield-starved banks in order to make money. They are making a considerable amount of money on the churn, the turning, the trembling, the volatility of the market itself. They're making a killing on it. The fourth thing that I said is this. They want to control the supply because they don't want you to control the supply. And how did that work out? Well, simple. If you are an American citizen, you're trying to buy Bitcoin in the United States, what do you got to do? You got to provide your KYC AML to let's just say Coinbase, which is the popular American cryptocurrency, right? Exchange. Well, you upload your driver's license, your proof of address, all this other stuff. They do a little background check on you. And now they also create an IRS file on you. Now you go ahead and you start buying your Bitcoins on Coinbase. Well, they limit how much you can buy. First, it's $500. And then with more KYC AML, they'll probably boot you up to $10,000. But it takes you forever and a week in order for them to fulfill that order for you. Then if you're trying to liquidate it, they make it impossible. It's very difficult for you to liquidate out of an exchange. And when you do liquidate out of an exchange, fees are taken out. And it could be as high as 6%, 7, 8, 9%, 10% at times. And with all the ancillary fees. And then you also get a knock from the door from the IRS saying, hey, you know what? You made $100,000. You owe 30 some odd percent, 36% in crypto taxes, not to mention any capital gains tax. So they've made the on-ramps and the off-ramps very difficult for the average American citizen. They're controlling the price action. So in other words, they want you to get excited about the product, but they don't exactly want you to hold the product. That's why when you look at some of the products that Wall Street has launched, like, Square, Jack Dorsey's company owns Cash App. Cash App is partnered with a bunch of other Wall Street firms. You can buy Bitcoin through Cash App, but you can never take it out. You see? Oh. You can never take it out and spend it. Secondly is this. I've been warning for the last several years that Wall Street is working on a Bitcoin ETF. Well, yesterday it launched. And that ETF is the main reason why the price is up high today. Because eventually, as the system is going broke in the United States, the way they keep it up, I mean, Tim, you and I could laugh about this, where it seems like with every bad news, the market goes higher, right? A nuclear bomb went off in Chicago. Dow, 40,000 points. Something as insane as that. And the reason why is, first of all, the numbers on Wall Street are completely fake. It's completely devoid of reality. Secondly, Wall Street doesn't want you to own crypto. They want you to own the ETF. Hey, don't buy Bitcoin here. Here's an ETF for you. And then Wall Street, I know from plans from JP Morgan, I've known about plans from Merrill Lynch as well as Goldman Sachs. And I said this years ago in my broadcast and to my clients as well. Don't be surprised one day you go to an American supermarket and you're trying to check out at a grocery store. And they're right there by the grocery checkout along the cards, gift card section with, next to the Apple card and the Amazon gift cards. You're going to see stock market cards from maybe like Goldman Sachs. Hey, you can buy micro shares in Bitcoin ETF. Hey, you can buy micro shares in Netflix. You can buy micro shares in Google. They want to keep this going because the market is running out of real liquidity. So they want to get the suckers on board. So in other words, it's in their benefit to launch a Bitcoin ETF. Why? Because number one, they'll never give you the actual physical Bitcoin. They'll say, it's too. First, it was too volatile. Now they're saying it's too damn expensive. Why buy a $60,000 Bitcoin when you can trade on these ETFs for pennies on the dollar? They're creating the illusion of liquidity, and this is all happening because we have nothing but illiquid, insolvent, zombie institutions masquerading as solvent financial institutions. And this is exactly what the problem is, Tim, and it's not going to end well here in the United States.
Well, that was certainly an impassioned answer. Thank you. Okay. Now, in Russia, we have our central bank, which is kind of like the Fed, and kind of disappointing like the Fed. But what if one day things changed and they sat down and thought, we're going to make a national Bitcoin. We're going to make a Russia coin. Or someone in Japan goes, let's make a Japan coin or whatever. Could some sort of cryptocurrency work as a national currency?
Yeah, that's definitely in the realm of possibility. If they would nationalize their central bank and then create a central bank issued digital currency, which, the New York Fed is proposed that idea, and they're toying around with Fed coin. You see the Chinese have their own PBOC, People's Bank of China, digital yuan that's been issued. And, if the Russians will do that and they make it something that is for the public benefit, where the people have the power over it, and the people will have a say as to how it is utilized, where it's not utilized to penalize, it's not utilized to cajole or control, but it's utilized as a honest way and a mechanism of transaction, then I'm all for it. And it could definitely, because I'll give you an example. You could move, and I've seen this witness, and I've been, a partaker to witnessing this, where you could see, you can move $10 million of Bitcoin from Zimbabwe to Australia and only pay like $1.34, $2-3, depending on the network congestion, only a handful of dollars in terms of fees. and it appears in minutes, in seconds sometimes, right? That's something that a modern bank cannot do. A modern bank cannot compete with blockchain technology. And if the Russian government makes a real blockchain technology where they say, you know what, this is a real blockchain, meaning it's a public ledger, not a private ledger, because if it's a private ledger, it's really not a blockchain, but it's a public ledger where the people of Russia could see how their money's created, how their money is spent, and where their money's going, then I'm all for it. That would be wonderful. It'd be a great thing. I'll tell you what they're postulating in the West. What they're postulating in the West is a much more tyrannical form of control, where if you do not toe the government line, if you are deemed an enemy of the state, meaning you have a differing opinion, that's all that means. Back then, 30, 40 years ago, if you were an enemy of the state in the United States, that means you've done some sort of a heinous act. You were some sort of a terrorist. You were some sort of a murderer. These days, you just have a differing opinion saying that there's only, boys are boys and girls are girls. Oh, my God, you're an enemy of the state. If you have those kind of political views, I see a future where you wake up one day and you could have 10,000 Fed coins in your bank account or in your digital wallet because you posted a negative Facebook, remark or a negative social media remark. You wake up and all of a sudden now you got 5,000 Fed coins in your digital wallet. So as long as it's not used by some sort of as a control mechanism by tyrannical governments, then I'm for it. I'm for freedom and openness and honesty and transparency. And if Russia moves in that direction with what they want to do, man, hey, I need to move there faster.